your meal and your drinks. Just a reminder, by the way, there is a specific drink for tonight called the BMM drink. It's really amazing, and the proceeds go towards Black Lives Matter. So do order that one, don't forget. But as you can see, we have two of our panelists here. Nicole is en route, so she will be here to join us. But we're going to be talking about exploring Black mental health through creativity and community. So beside me here we have Marvyn, and we also have Kelechi, and they're going to quickly introduce themselves and tell you a bit about what they do and the foundations that they've started and the communities that they've built. So Marvyn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, hi. Sorry, we hadn't tested the mics. Hi, I'm Marvyn Harrison. I'm the founder of Dope Black Dads. I'm also the founder and chief executive of Beloved, which is a diversity, equity and inclusion agency. And we work with companies anywhere from News UK to Johnson & Johnson and Facebook on different cultural transformation projects. I also do a reoccurring show on BBC 5 Live on Sundays. And I'm all of your friends.
Hi, my name is Kelechi Okafor, and I'm an actor, director, podcaster, writer, and the founder of Kelechi Okafor Pole Dance Studio. And the community came about because of all of the things I kind of like noticed as I was building my career. I think one of the most notable things was that started the pole dance studio was me taking my workshops that I was teaching at the time around the UK, and I reached out to a studio in Manchester, a white-owned studio, and I said, I want to, teach my workshop here because I noticed that they billed Miley Cyrus as one of the originators of twerk. So I was just like, that's extremely wild, and I wanted to, take my classes there, and they said, I sent them a video. They said, I don't enjoy your style of twerk. I find it basic. When me and my girls twerk, we put our knee pads on and throw down. And the jury's still out on when they picked it back up. But that was such a pivotal moment because the story went viral when our videos were put side by side, and lots of Black women started saying, well, why don't you open your own space? Open your own space. And I didn't know how I was going to, and I kind of muddled my way through. And now that I opened my first studio in 2016, and now we're 2021, and in the second space, much bigger, and it's thriving. So that's how the community built.
Oh, Nicole! Hey, Nicole! Was immaculate.
Oh, really?
Oh, hey, Nicole, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Correct. I'm Nicole Crenstil, CEO of Black Girl First, angel investor, speaker, amazing person. Hi. Yeah, it's great to have you here. Oh, welcome. Oh, crap.
Thanks for being here. And so, Kelechi, thank you for describing how you started out your community. I would love Marvyn for you to share how you started with Dope Black Dads.
Yeah, it was an interesting one because the male parenting experience isn't being redefined, and in that I was a bit lost, and I wanted to talk to other dads who were doing incredible things in the world, trying to do a balance with that and be an amazing husband and really have presence with your children. And when I created the group, anyone that gets added to a WhatsApp group without being invited, it's always quite horrific. It's a bit tense, like who's gonna leave? And so when I created it and nobody left, it made me realize that this is maybe something that we all needed to have in our lives. And very, very quickly it turned into a very transformative conversation with men speaking really candidly about the male parenting experience, mental health, suicide, finances, generational challenges. Like, it was just the most beautiful thing I'd ever been a part of. And then automatically everyone wanted to add more people. And then the conversation and discovery just happened in such a way that I was like, I feel like we need to share this in a podcast format because it's uninterrupted and it allows us to speak freely. And then after 3 months of the podcast, it kind of exploded, and we launched in the UK and the US and South Africa. And now now we have groups all over the world. But I think the key thing is just like allowing men to speak freely, to form their thoughts around something that is secondary nature to them, to then walk in powerfully on that subject.
Amazing. And Nicole, would you like to tell us how you started with Black Girl Fest?
Yes. Hello? Oh, yeah, great. Yeah, Black Girl Fest, we've been on a journey. Black Girl Fest was co-founded in 2017, and it was really born out of a need to see more black women on stages like this, hearing about our conversations, hearing about our experiences, and actually seeing ourselves being represented back into the spaces where we wanted to see each other was just so necessary, and it was so needed, and we didn't realize how needed it was until the first one happened, and like thousands of people tried to get into this tiny venue, and it was like, oh crap, this is very needed. And then obviously, from year on year, we were just building the community, continuing to put together programming. Kelechi is one of our speakers, OG speakers, and giving people the platform to share their things. And no one had really done that, where they, it felt quite revolutionary to be like, ooh, a whole space for black women, by black women, with black women in the whole room. Like, ooh, like that's new, right? The community grew and grew. The last night we did was in 2019, and that had like 3,000 people in one space, which was insane. And then COVID happened, changed the way in which we gather, specifically as black people, black women. And we pivoted. We had to do what many people had to do, which was completely pivot the business to think about the time and place of where we are at as a community, but also as a society, because we know what happened in 2020 with Black Lives Matter in the summer, and the lives that are lost. But I think the thing that I always say when this current Black History Month time of our lives, where everyone's talking about George Floyd, all the people who unfortunately lost, was that blood didn't have to spill for us to create this work, and no more blood should have to spill for us to continue. And I think that was really powerful in terms of thinking about the future of Black Girl Fest and what it could be, and how it can continue to exist, and how it can be a space for this continuous loop of seeing yourself being reflected, opportunities, space for access, space for knowledge and sharing. And that's what I wanted to continue, the legacy of that work to consistently be, so that whatever we came out of, the hellscape that was the panoramic, that we had a place where we could gather again, safely, freely. And that's what I'm hoping that the future of the business will be, but also for the future of the community that we're serving. It's constantly feeding into their needs and constantly understanding their experiences and building out spaces where they can see themselves being reflected. That's the hope and dream. And I always say, like, the work will become redundant when we see more black women thriving. And until then, we've got to keep working. So, yeah. Sorry, guys.
Now, one thing that you all have in common is that you created safe spaces for the black community. How have you noticed over the years the impact that your individual communities has had?
Oh, look at Kelechi's impact. Oh my God! Like, where do we even begin? Should I just like pick Kelechi up? I mean, it's. Sorry to interrupt you when you were speaking, but I just looked at you and I was like, Kelechi, and so many incredible women who've had taking center stage. Some of the people we've had like speaking for the first time, hosting for the first time, facilitating for the first time, like leading group sessions, selling in our marketplace for the first time, and just watching people grow and grow and do amazing things and write books and do TEDx's and run podcasts, and it's just like, this is incredible. And I think that's the impact of the work. It's creating spaces where you can see your community thriving, and that tangible view of someone who's literally sitting next to you who's doing amazingly, and so many other people in the industry who I know who are doing amazingly. And whether or not that's because of us or whether the spaces that we've created is the reason, we know that we've been part of that story. And that's really powerful. Like, being a part of that story of someone's development and growth is just remarkable. I can imagine as well with yourself, like seeing fathers come into your group chat and then kind of be new dads and then leave the group chat or go on to create new group chats because they've learned so much from being in that one space. That for me is like job done. So like, that's why I was like, the extraordinaire next to me.
No, I agree with Nicole. I think that's it. Like, you see the impact and what other people go on to do, other people that you've interacted with, how they go on to kind of flourish, really. And I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for the black women specifically around me. whether it's Black Girl Fest, whether it's Galdem, when they had their first big at the VNA, they had their big experience, and I think that really kind of propelled me into this space of like, wow, that is the person to go to for twerk. But obviously, I have all these other things that I'm doing as well, and I think for a long time it took people a while to understand that I can do many things and do them really, really well. So moving away from just doing dance workshops and like I do all this social commentary, you're gonna have to keep up. You're gonna have to keep up. And yeah, so I always think about Sienna Bangura as well. She was one of the first people, literally the first person who said, could you do a workshop for me and explain nutrition and health to Black women and femme-presenting people? Can you just do this workshop for me? And because she knew I'd been a personal trainer for a few years, and that was the first time I'd really sat in a room of Black people and went, okay, now let me explain to you how our nutrition works for us specifically and how to use the food that we eat to help us. So you can't just follow whitewash narratives of what is healthy, quote unquote. These are the things that I've researched that will actually help you. Maybe it's with your, your estrogen levels. These are the things that might help you to balance it out, because I've gone ahead and done the research. And through Sienna, I found that I started making connections with other people. So I feel like the impact you see is from the network that starts to kind of like build all around you. And I hear people using my phrases and I've never met them. And so I think about that and I just think that is it. The energy is the impact.
From our perspective, we launched in 2018, Father's Day, and then I think 3 months later, the Mums Group was created, and then 6 months later, the Women's Group was created, and then we launched the men's space, and then for about a year, we were just like, we're doing a lot, let's just sit tight. But then there was this real incompleteness about us because we didn't have queer and disabled spaces, and so the thing about how we work is that you meet someone that represents an intersection and you just give them the framework and just tell them to go. And then we give you all the lessons, the learnings, the insights that we have, but really it's about that person. So anyone that you've seen holding space under the banner of Dope Black, it's just been literally like a high five, I see something, go. And they've created it on their own. And it's really interesting how every single group has created themselves slightly different. Some people have gone for, we're a group and we represent the thing and go out into the world. Some people have been purely on activism. Some people have been, a kind of a hybrid of the both. And so for us, being now multinational and having all the intersections, I think our legacy is that we just stand in things that make us feel uncomfortable. Like I grew up in a matriarch, so when things happen in a particular way, it moves me in a way that I have to say something. But I've come to understand that we have to look at structural answers as well as social answers. My personal gift is more centered in structural answers. Like I came from a background in advertising, so my understanding of how an organization would marry with another organization to make change is how my brain works. So we went more structural in the last 18 months because a lot of the frontline work is authentically quite exhausting. And it doesn't mean that it's not to be done or it's not valued. We need to do it. But like I burnt out every year for the last 6 years, twice a year. And so after burning out for the 4th time and you look around and like everything's just, GMB will create something mad and someone else will create something mad and you're just waking up and you're like, what is going on? So there's people like you and Dr. Shola Shabomanu who I'm like, I don't even know where you get your fuel from. It's just pure admiration. And I feel like you need it all. You need every part of it to make it move forward. And our gift is now currently in that space, but we always stand in things that we don't like that we see, and I think that's fundamentally important. That will never change.
And since you've all built a community that each of us is familiar with and is plugged into, can you share a time that you've ever lacked community, and then what did you do to resolve that?
Did Black Girl Fest lack it or just no? Because you were aware of it.
Yeah.
You were aware of community and amplified.
Yeah. I think. Do you mean me personally, as in like my personal
You as in
experience?
your personal experience.
My personal experience. I I mean, definitely at university, I didn't have like such a rich like group of black girlfriends that I knew that I could rely on, that I was connected with, that I was creating with until I graduated, until I came back to London. And at that time as well, I was really going through it. I didn't even realise that I was having so many like intense depressive episodes until I literally, it hit me like a truck. And that was when I did my first exhibition actually in 2016 on Masked Women, because I was very much just like, I was at a point where I wanted to know if other black women experienced this. Like I didn't know if this was just a singular feeling or if other people had experienced this. And that's where I sought out to find black women. I sought out to find artists and creatives, one, to be my exhibition, but also to start building that network and building that community. And that's where I realized how much I was lacking, because I was like, I say, Masked Women healed me. Like it brought me so much comfort to build from then on. And I think my career really started from that moment on. I met so many incredible people. I did another exhibition with Geldem, V&A. I was able to then utilize that network to build the community that I was so longing for. So I think early days, growing up in a society where I wasn't born in this country, I was born in Ghana, and every education, workplace, literally system, I've always been a singular black girl. And so it's only when I really found my creative community that I really felt like I understood more about my identity and more about myself. And that was where I was just like, well, I'm in this now. So like everyday black women all day, every day. And that's how someone asked me in a panel earlier today, and it was like, how do you marry up your brand with your business? And I was like, I am. Do you know what I mean? Like I live and breathe black. So like you couldn't find me not supporting black businesses or not engaging with black women or not supporting black people, full stop. But yeah, I think there was a point in my time where that wasn't part of my ecosystem. So
yeah, I would go off that as well. Being born in Nigeria, coming here when I was like 5 years old. I don't know, I think it's a controversial one, but I don't think I found my community per se. I feel like I'm good at building spaces that I feel like others need, but in terms of the space that would allow me to fully kind of be, I don't think that I found that yet, but that's okay, because I think I get closer and closer to it, like every day with different interactions and things like that. But I feel that I intuitively know what others need, so I'm able to provide the space for them, but you can't keep kind of giving from an empty cup. So I know that it's important to gravitate towards people who kind of like pour back to me and pour back into me as well. And I think that takes time, and I think that it's okay to be honest about that as well. Like, we're not done. The work is not done. And so in terms of the community that I feel like I'm longing for and yearning for, I have not seen that yet. But I'm trying to put things in place that allows for other people, if this is the stage that they're at, to find something there. I think one of the closest things would probably be the podcast, because growing up, having trigger warning, having a childhood of sexual abuse and stuff, I was very shut down. And I remember like looking at school reports now in hindsight and seeing those school reports saying, Kelechi's like amazing at all her subjects, but she's very moody. And I thought that was an interesting word for them to use for a 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old. And nobody ever thought, well, what could possibly be wrong that means she's just not open, right? And so nobody took that time. So I've kind of always operated as a bit of a loner, but a loner that is ready to give and help with healing. But that also, I guess, is a trauma response. You try to make sure that everybody is okay, so nobody turns in on you. So when it came to needing to go to therapy, I took myself to therapy. When it, everything that I've needed, I've taken myself to. So I'm grateful for that kind of saying that, physician, heal thyself. I had to go about healing myself, but I think that there comes a point where maybe there's a wound that you can't quite reach. You're going to need other people to help you with that, but you have to be able to trust them enough to show them where it is. And I just don't feel, me being 100% transparent, I don't feel like I've reached that with a number of people. Why? Because I feel like we live in, I'm always saying it, a white supremacist, patriarchal, hetero-patriarchal society where no matter, everyone's got the buzzwords, everyone's got the things, but when it comes down to like doing the rigorous work of like loving radically and in a raw manner. I haven't met many people who have reached that point. Well, I am not close with those people who have reached that point. So so I think that it's progress. You know, we're doing things, we're getting to places. I'm seeing that healing is happening around me with the podcast. That's why I started the podcast, to speak about the things that I noticed that other people weren't speaking about, because I've kind of operated going like in this sort of like solitary way, moving through life and seeing things and thinking that I need to say something about this, but also noticing that there are groups of other black women who are like, you don't do that, don't say that, don't do that, we don't do that in public or whatever. And being okay with the fact, well, this is how I'm going to do it, and noticing that thousands of people every week, thousands and thousands listen to the podcast for my take on how I see the world, and to me, that is a step in the right direction. That is me getting ever closer to the community that I believe can provide true healing.
So that was really interesting, yeah, because I felt like you were just saying stuff that wasn't really mine, and I was like, where are you getting that from? There was a lot that you were pulling from, and I've intentionally created community since the beginning of time. So I launched Sunday Show in 2007. Some of you weren't old enough to attend. And it was basically like a variety show, music, comedy, entertainers, and it started off very UK centric, but very quickly we started having a lot of US artists, so like J. Cole, Marvyn, I think Drake did a show, Leslie, Ryan, loads of people did shows. And then what actually happened was everyone that attended was really just like music managers, artists, creators that were trying to get to the next step. And that was a platform where you'd either meet people or like present your best self. And it was always like a bit of a make and break, because the crowd was so raw and directional. So if you weren't vibes, they would let you know, and you'd have to maybe not perform all your songs. And so that culture created loads of great stuff. Mo Gilligan was the host. KG Comedian was also the host. Ace and Viz hosted. There was like just us. There was loads of usness in it. And then I realized that was my first real community on my own, and that's just how I build things. It's people-led. And then Dope Black became an extension of that. And ultimately, it was searching. It was like, I want to just find people that are doing dope shit and representing intersectionality, but do dope shit. But how do you do that and be this? And what happens when that goes wrong? And, you know, but it's connected to this. And so masculinity has been a thing that I've always questioned. It's always been slightly disconnected and imbalanced. And so, as I said, I grew up in a matriarchy. So in my house, you spoke and you felt. Like, you shared those feelings. Like, I don't know how to be like the stoic, like if you upset me, you will discover that very quickly. And I think, like, you know, that has been historically made wrong in masculine circles. Like, you know, you're sure your feelings, like you're just too. I'm like, I don't care. Like that's where I am, and I'm on my sleeve constantly. I'm always this close to the fabric, and so you know, finding people who understood that. And it wasn't until I went to South Africa, and I was there for like way too long. I basically went there for 3 weeks on holiday to try and sleep, and then I ended up not coming home for about 8 months. And while being there, I was just meeting people who were really connected to the spiritual element, and they're doing the work in a really powerful way right now. And so I'm going back, because I obviously need to refuel, but also there's a lot more that I can gift. And I feel like finding your community has led me abroad intentionally. But the gifts that I find there, I bring back here and try to present them. But also understanding that, like, there's an individual element to me right now. It's a very solo journey. And there's things that I want to experience, understand deeper and more profoundly about myself. That's where my investment is. And as a result, whatever is created is available to others. And that's where I've always kind of probably been at my best.
Sorry. It's an evolving space, this sense of finding self and community. Because I remember when I went to Ghana for the first time without my parents. That's a different experience when you go back to your mom. And I literally had like an epiphany. I was like, all this black British. Nicole, you're an African woman, you know. The experience is so different, and I was finding community there. I was finding creative. I was finding myself in somebody else who was didn't come to the UK, who wasn't doing all this stuff that we're doing over here, who wasn't doing, at that time I remember it was the general election, and everyone was just going crazy about general election. Nobody can give a heck in Ghana. They were like, I just saw people who were doing what I was doing in the UK, and they were doing it over there, and I was like, I want to be part of your community. This is a whole community that could have been my story if I stayed. Do you know what I mean? And I think that was probably like 2-3 years ago when I had that experience, and I was just like, yo, like, Nicole, you're an African woman, you know, like black British thing, you're kind of like black race, and they're just annoying you back in this country. This is where people care. They don't care about your, I said they never care about your purple passport, they care about your, what colour is the Ghana passport? I forgot.
You're an African woman, you know.
I forgot. It's because they hate the British colour, haven't they? So I got confused. Anyway, nobody cares about your British passport in Ghana. They care about what village your mum born in. So that's why, that's a forever evolving thing. So finding community, I think, evolves and it grows and it changes. And you sometimes go on that journey alone. You meet people, then you have to go on that journey alone again. Yeah, something like that.
And one thing that you all mentioned, you're very vocal about things that we as a community don't speak about. Mental health. Even you spoke about trigger warning, abuse, and you spoke about men finding comfort in being emotional and masculine. But have you ever found there's any backlash from being open about what's not spoken about? But then how do you look after yourself when you're saying something? You can go first.
It is. I've never experienced it, just know that millions have it.
I don't recognize it.
No, honestly, backlash, I live and breathe it. I think that through going, you mentioned how do you deal with it, right? And how do you work through it? I think that it's a knowing of self. And to not be so egoic to the point that you think that you know yourself fully. Every day we're presented with new information. Nobody knows every single thing. So sometimes you might think that people are moving mad, but maybe the thing, like ignore how they're saying something and then go to the root of what's being said. Is there truth in the root of what's being said? Okay, I'll take that and I'll go with it. I think it's being open to looking at things and not allowing ego to take over, and for you to not believe that, like, I know me, this is me. I don't feel that there is such a thing as me per se. Like Nicole said, I'm an ever-evolving being. Like, some of the things that I liked yesterday, I no longer like today. So committing myself to a me is long. So I just, when those things in terms of like backlash happen, I'm kind of okay with it now, because I'm just like, you know what? It is what it is, because you definitely don't know me. If I don't know me, you definitely don't know me. So people project, and I've read so many books, and I remember in one of them, I think it was by Gary Chapman, I could be wrong, and he said something like, people don't treat you how they treat you because of who you are, they treat you how they treat you because of who they are. I could be the wildest person on this planet, but how you take me is based on your personal experience. You can only meet people as far as you've met yourself. So if I'm saying something that I know to be a truth, and I try to stay away from saying the truth, because there are many truths, right? So if I know something to be a truth, you clearly haven't experienced that thing, and then you're coming into my DMs or into my mentions, or sometimes even sending me posts to my studio and like, I just eat, shut up. Okay, all right, but that's as far as you've gone on your journey. And there are so many people who, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe even last month, they were kikiing with their friends about, oh yeah, she's so angry all of the time, always talking about things. Then they experience something in their life, and all of a sudden, you're a fan. Yeah, and that is what happens. Like, I promise you, the God that I serve, at some point, no matter how you feel about me, whatever I'm saying that is ordained as a truth, one way or another, you're going to find your way back to me. And so I see it happen all of the time. People making this pivot, small, and then eventually it's like, so I'm just going to be 100% transparency. 3 years ago, I wasn't really feeling what you were saying. I wasn't really down with it. But like, things happened in my life, yeah? And yo, I'm just saying that I realize now that you're the truth. And again, kick in, because you understand that this is beyond me, this is beyond us, that there is something else that's happening, a global sort of community building, that you have to not let the "I told you so" come forward and let it, back off. It's very, very hard, because you want to be like, but you have to hold off. And one of the times I saw that was when my Chat Shit Get Banned video went viral because of the Americans, and it was bittersweet, because it took the Americans being like, "Oh my God, she's amazing," but suddenly the Brits were like, "Yeah, she's alright, still, like, she's and then more people started following, and then they weren't being so harsh towards me because the Americans started co-signing me. And it goes back to what Nicole was saying about this Black British identity. I don't hold on to any identity too firmly, because I know that within it there also comes limitations, and the spirit that resides within this human shield goes beyond any identity that I'm trying to cling on to. Because I don't want any limitations. So this whole idea of I must stay with the Black Brits, but why is it then the Americans that are willing to hear what I'm saying? Why is that? So when it comes to backlash, I'm trying to get to the point where I don't take it personally. Within Yoruba spirituality, Yoruba cosmology, one of the sayings that you're told is that the world, as in like Earth, is a marketplace, and if you enter onto Earth to go and trade your wares and your talents, your everything that you have, you go to trade it, and then you come back home, and you're told, do not get distracted by the noise of the marketplace. Fam, if you argue with everybody in the market, you will not go and trade your wares, you will not get to what you need to get to. So sometimes when I'm tempted to just be like, no, let me just tell them about their hairline, 1 second. I've got to just be like, do not get distracted with the noise of the marketplace. I know what I'm coming here to do, or I think I have an idea, so I'm just going to do that and then let everybody else like scream their heads off.
Can I just say, again, I feel like he just went into my head and just what's really powerful is, I think in doing this work, you attract people who are searching, and they may not be healthy minds who connect to you, and they'll come and pull a significant amount from you. Like my approach was just like, I'm going somewhere. Like I'm 15 years into my career. I know exactly what I wake up to do every day. I'm just on my mission. But whatever I create, take. Like there's bare excess. Like there's people around. There's things I can't do. You do it, and then you realize that like not everyone turns up with the same clarity or clean-heartedness, and so they start doing things that now impact you doing your thing. But rather than, get out of the way or say thank you, they'll just pretend like, I don't even want to say, I'll start feeding too much. But like, the main point is that just be very aware of the boundaries when you're on your mission. Like, I know mine, and so I had to go and recreate my affinity with my own mission. Because halfway through, I was getting lost in like, what are you doing over there? What's going on over there? Why are you saying that? Why didn't you turn up to that? Like, showing up to help people, and then they just disappear when I'm like holding the thing for them. All of these things was going on, and so as you were speaking, I was really present to like what can be created around you. And if you don't have healthy boundaries, you will find yourself lost on your journey. And so me, right now, my whole thing is peace. Like, I have a relationship with peace that is like uninterruptible. And if anything feels too problematic for me, I go and take a nap. Me and my meditation have an amazing relationship. And I think like in that, I've realized that some people just had to go because they didn't know peace. They're not bad people. I don't want to make people bad and wrong and label them with things that they have to now take off. I'm just saying, like, your relationship to peace isn't the same as mine. You're willing to do things that I'm definitely not willing to do, and we can't coexist. And I think that that's a really healthy space to be in when you're doing the work, because for me, and the legacy of what I created, I'm really here to work.
You took the words out of my mouth now. I'm just like, yeah, 100%. No, I'm fully on the peace vibe. Maybe the older you get, the more you're just like, I can't be arsed, man. Like, and as well, I think, I see people who don't know peace because they're just on crud, and I'm just like, I wish better for you, and then just join. And I think it's interesting because when you think about some of the conversations that you see on Twitter and the things that are coming out, it's my job to actively listen. Like, I know the heck out of a lot of things, but not engaging with is a different level of badness, right? Being able to understand what's happening across the community from everything from that Jessie one straight down to whatever political person is saying, or straight down to the random stuff deep in Black Twitter, like the stuff that you should not be seen at 12 in the morning. I see it, I know it, but the balance between seeking peace and not engaging and knowing is very, very different. And I think a lot of people in public profiles or people who build communities like ours, there's a fine line between understanding the challenges of your community members and knowing how to like flow over it and be able to understand what's happening and be able to make a concise decision about what you might need to do, conversation you might need to have, an event you might need to host, whatever it may be that you need to draw upon those conversations, but not putting yourself in it that jeopardizes your own mental health or your own like desire for more peace and joy, really. I think a lot of that was actually our post-Clubhouse days, you know, deep in the lockdown where everyone was just online and everyone in their dance just shouting. And I was like, oh my God, like the mic is on in Clubhouse. And I think that was a space where it just angered me. Some of the things that people were saying just made me feel so like frustrated, but that wasn't the peace that I was seeking. So it was saying to myself, like, no, you can't engage in this stuff if it literally doesn't bring you joy. So I think it's having those honest conversations with yourself and saying, like, you know, if I'm going to be on this path of peace, I need to fill myself, my heart, my truth with things that bring me joy and things that actually allow me to still filter in to know what's happening on the streets, but stay on the pavement, you know? Just be watching, you know, and just, you know, and even though when the young kids are doing these, I can say young because I'm 30 now. I'm just seeing what the young kids are doing now on this TikTok now. I'm just like, oh, this is what you're not doing, okay. And just be on the pavement, just enjoying peaceful life. And that's what I want for the rest of my life, really and truly.
I think that's a major point. I was speaking to Bo about it earlier, about detachment. I think that when people, one of the first things that people usually ask me when they meet me is like, oh my God, how do you just do that? Because it must be so draining and tasking and, you know, for you to just do all of that. And again, we come back to the egoic self. I'm not trying to be a martyr out here. I'm not here to come and take...
Baby girl.
I'm just a baby girl. I can't come and take paracetamol for somebody else's headache. What I can do is I'll give you the things. I'll be like, this is happening, but I have, through therapy, lots and lots of therapy, I have an amazing talent to detach myself from the thing. Before, it was a trauma response, but I've been able to use those very same tools that helped as a mode of surviving to actually use it for thriving, right? So I can look at what's happening, like Nicole said, and go, like people could be screaming up and down about me. My name could be trending. I'm like, and I'll go and do something else. I'm not as engaged as people want me to be, and I think that that's also what aggravates a specific kind of group of people a lot, because I will still make fun of the thing that's happening and still be passionate, still tell you that I care about something, but not be distracted by what's going on. And there has to be that sense of detachment. Otherwise, you feel like, well, I've got to fall on this sword every time. But the thing is, you'll do that. And so many black women have come before us that have done that exact same thing. Black women specifically come through and done that exact same thing, only to be remembered later on like, oh, well, wasn't she great for giving up her life, for doing... No, I'll wear a cute shoe, I'll wear a cute bag, I'm going to live my life while being aware of all of the things that's happening. I think that it's possible for us to exist in a space of duality. Numerous things can be true at any one time, but we insist on a false dichotomy, we insist on these false binaries like, this absolute. But really, when we look at everybody's individual lives, nobody's living in absolutes, absolutely nobody. So but we jump online, we jump into public spaces and become hypocrites. And it's owning that, and owning the hypocrisy and going, I want to do less of the hypocrisy and make more space for duality.
And guys, I'm sure you've learned a lot from listening to this panel, because so much has been shared. But I would love to know, just to wrap this up, what's a final piece of advice you'd give to our audience when it comes to looking after their mental health?
There's a lot. We've kind of touched upon some of this stuff already in terms of like practical ways of how we try to address distractions and people basically just ruining our peace and stuff. But I think something that I've learned in the lockdown, I think everyone's learned something over the last year, has been like how to actualize centering joy. And that's hard, right? Because we all went through the similar experience, but for some people, varying experiences based on what was happening with your personal lives. But it was hard to center joy, moments of joy, and actually deciphering like what brings me joy, and filtering your life with more of that. I think that's really hard. You get to a certain age, you're just like, there's a whole bunch of people that don't bring me joy. There's a whole bunch of experiences, work, life, whatever it may be, that actually makes me sad. And sometimes you have to do like a complete like audit. You have to figure out like what is actually not making me happy. A similar thing to what people always say on social media, like unfollow or mute people that, you know, make you feel insecure and unconfident. Like that needs to happen across your whole life, I personally believe. And COVID and everything that happened the past year made me really think about like, you know, what other things do I want to, when we go into this new normal, when we come out of this, do I want to now center and prioritize relationships, people, work, whatever it may be, that I need to really celebrate, that bring me absolute peace and joy. And it's going swimming, guys. I literally walk around sometimes like in just like space of just complete gratitude. Yeah, man. The other day I was just like, oh my God, thanking God, like, whoa, can you believe this? Like, find my nice house. Like, I was like, yo, the little things that I never really even just took, because I was always stressed out about something. I was always consumed with something online. I was always overwhelmed by something. And then when I got into a space of just gratitude and joy, like the kind of the things in my head of just peace and just stillness, is incredible. Stillness is incredible. That practicing that over lockdown has really changed, because I think everything was so moving and fast paced. But taking those moments, just be completely still, breath work, anything that just allows you to just remain as still as possible, that's been transformative for me. So yeah, those are some things I've found.
Yeah, I second that as well. I think that one of the main advice, because I do a lot of like tarot and stuff, and actually my advice links to that. I think that for all of us as individuals, we need to cut the cloth, as it were, of our happiness according to the size of our soul and our destiny. A lot of unhappiness is prevalent in our society because we're trying to wear the cloak of happiness that's meant to fit somebody else, or that we've been told like this is like the mass-produced thing that's going to fit everybody, but fam, it's tight, it doesn't fit me, like, and so people get scared when it looks like somebody's deviating from what we have been told is the thing that we should all strive for. And the Panda Bear has shown us all that actually a lot of these things that we're seeing, it's a farce. Like none of it. It is an amalgamation of myths and falsehoods that has been presented to us as reality. And for decades, centuries even, we've accepted it as the absolute truth. But then that came along, and then suddenly we're seeing all the tears in what appeared to be reality. And you peek through, and then you see that there's just a universe, an expanse of space beyond that allows you to be almost limitless in your potential. So that means that you can cut your cloth of your happiness to the thing that is as expansive as your soul, and you can't be scared to do it, because when you start showing people that actually I want to go this way, you can't do that because we don't do that in this family, or no. But you again, be firm in the knowledge that you chose. I believe anyway, we all have different belief systems, but I believe that you chose to be here in this moment, in this room today, wherever you are in your life. You chose to have this earthly experience because you wanted to do it your way. You didn't choose to come here so somebody else could tell you what it means for you to be happy. So if it looks different to somebody else, oh well, you have to strive for the thing that brings you, like Nicole was saying, the utmost joy. You have to cut the cloak of your happiness to the size of your soul. And some people, they want small things. Some people might want something else, and I don't even want to quantify it in terms of size, because for somebody else what might seem small is massive to somebody else. But you have to go after the thing that's for you, because when you start going towards the things that's actually cut to you and the shape and size of your soul and your destiny, suddenly you start realizing that opportunities have never passed you by. The things that were actually meant and destined for you have found you all along the way. But if you're trying to wear somebody else's outfit, like, of course you're gonna be like, oh, this didn't happen for me, or this didn't zip up like this didn't look the way I was expecting it to. Yeah, of course it didn't, because it wasn't meant for you in the first place. So I think that that's ultimately why I remind myself of all of the time. If I catch myself being like, well, I have to, was that meant for you? Is that going to fit into, like, does that fit you? No, it doesn't. You know, there might be something that looks like it, but that clearly was not for you. The things that are for you will never ever pass you by. So, and it's hard to hear sometimes when you feel like, oh man, and I'm saying that as an actor, you submit so many self-tape after self-tape after self-tape, and then you see the person you book here and you're like, huh? But you have to be like, you know what? Good, that was their destiny, that's part of their destiny, they're doing what they're doing. So I just implore all of us to like, go after the thing that makes your soul glad, and then, because the time is now, we've seen that a lot of these things are farcical, it's smoke and mirrors, so like, go after the thing that is for you.
My relationship with self-care has like evolved over the years, starting with counsellors and therapists and coaching frameworks and focusing on a value-based system. But I think my 10-day Vipassana silent retreat was by far the most transformative thing I've ever done. And authentically, I was scared to do it. Like, I rang my mum, I was crying. I was like, yo, I'm gonna go sit in silence for 10 days, no writing, no pens, no TV, no nothing, just in silence, by yourself, but with other people that you've never met. And when I walked in, you know, the first 2 days was like, wow, silence and nature, this is fantastic. Day 3 though, I was hallucinating, like, I was having projections, I had like rage fits, I was like, what the hell's going on? And like, you know, what I discovered in all of that is discipline and consistency of the mind is the most powerful thing. And one of the core teachings they give you is like no cravings, no aversions. And it's one of the most beautiful but simplest ways to look at things. So I don't crave nothing and I don't avert nothing. I stand in everything that moves me, and I don't crave anything that isn't with me. So therefore, in that, there's a discipline that you're able to have in how you move, what you connect to. Most of the things that went wrong in my life is because I was chasing something. And like that perspective has given me a certain level of freedom. And I just don't commit to those things anymore. And actually then things just that naturally happen are really, really beautiful. And then I honor them for what they are without trying to fit them into a concept. So it's not necessarily like, do this for mental health. It's a certain understanding that clicks, usually when you're asking the question, something isn't right here, I don't belong here, I'm alone. Those 3 questions usually trigger something where you go searching for bigger answers. Because the concept they sold you about house, wife, car, money, job, friends is nonsense. And you will go redesign it in your own image.
Thank you very much to our panellists. You've honestly been amazing. A lot of food for thought. And we're going to have a mini break, and then we're going to have some performances. But once again, thank you for sharing your knowledge.
Thank you.
You're great.